Good morning, Sidekicks crew. It is Monday morning. We have made it into another week of this bizarre upside down world. And I don't know about you, but I'm shooting right next to the giant window because I need that nice soft light on Monday morning here. I'm on here though because I know that a lot of you guys are starting your first week of distance learning this week. Some of you guys are starting week 2, but like my kids are school give the kids last week to sort of experiment with some stuff and figure it out, and they're starting for really reals this morning. And I know a lot of us are in the same boat, and I just wanted to share with you some things that I figured out from, actually this is our 3rd year doing distance learning, because last year and the year before that my kids all homeschooled through the FLVS Flex program, which is pretty much exactly, well, it's very close to what a lot of us are doing right now, which is that they had a live teacher who lived in another part of the state, and they met with her via FLVS's conferencing software a couple times a week, and then the rest of the time the assignments and the online learning all happened at home with me. So this is the 3rd year that I've actually had to do this, and I am here to save you some time and some frustration, and help you figure out some of the things that I figured out in our years of distance learning. The first one I actually talked about last week in its own standalone live because I think it's so important. I talked about my homeschool clipboard, where I have the list. I only keep 2 things on the clipboard because the clipboard can get overwhelmed real crazy real fast. I keep the lists of everything that each of my kids is supposed to do each week for their assignments, so we can physically cross something off, because it makes the kids and it makes me feel really good when we cross that thing off. And I keep a list of each of the child's logins and passwords, which if you look down here in the group, I posted a printable that you can print out at home and write down all the logins and passwords, because I don't know about you, but my kids' teachers weren't expecting to distance learn this year, and they're pulling resources from everywhere they can find them. And so my kids are logging into about 7,000 websites every day, and I have to keep track of all of those logins and passwords. And it makes life a lot simpler if I just keep all that in one spot, okay? The other thing that I wanted to get into more of was like what our everyday life was like when we were distance learning. Your kids are designed to thrive on structure because they're kids and they're still figuring out the world, and they don't really know what's going on necessarily the way that adults do, and frankly some days I feel like I don't know what's going on either. So they thrive on structures and having things that they can understand. So keeping that sense of normalcy for them is important. So if you have like, okay, we're going to start the school day at about this time, and we're going to work until about this time, and then we're going to do this activity, and then we're going to have snack, or we're going to play, or we're going to relax, or we're going to do martial arts online, or, you know, having that structure that they can understand in their day is really helpful to them and to you too. It keeps the days from kind of blurring together, and we avoids that thing where we're in the 3rd day of wearing the same pair of pajamas that we put on Tuesday and we don't really know what day it is. Structure helps with all of that. That said, we're all figuring out a brand new way to live our lives in a very emotionally vulnerable spot. So it's important to keep that schedule super flexible. Like, I'm going to set out with a rough idea of how my schedule is going to go. And if something goes haywire, if somebody has a meltdown, if something's not working, then we're going to be flexible and we're going to be adaptable, and we're going to make that change and be able to pivot, because that's the code word of 2020 is we're all pivoting. Schedules help. Don't be married to the schedule. Just, you got to kind of walk that balance in between. That said, don't let the first week set a forever tone, okay? So you are at the end of your first week of distance learning, and it was a disaster because you didn't know what to do and they didn't know what to do, and you're crying and they're fussing about not wanting to go to school, and you're fretting about how to make school fit into your work at home schedule, and everybody's frustrated and upset. You're gonna figure it out. Next week you'll make a change and make something better happen, and next week will be better than this week. And the week after that will be better than that. And the week after that will be better than that. I don't want you to get to the end of your first week and think, oh my God, this is a nightmare and it's always going to be a nightmare, because it won't. That first week is going to be an experiment, right? You're getting to know your kid in a context that you didn't necessarily know them in before. Your kids go to school and have 7 or 8 hours a day where they're involved in this system and this way of figuring life out that you're not there for, and you are figuring all these new things out about the way that your kid's brain works when they're doing this stuff they call school. And they're figuring things out about you too. And it's a discovery process, and every week is going to be a little bit different. So don't fret if your first week doesn't go exactly the way you hoped it would. Next week will be better, and the week after that will be better than that. And we're all going to figure it out and make improvements as we go along. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was how we used to actually set up our homeschool schedule every day. Pretty early on in our distance learning journey, several years ago, I started hearing from a lot of productivity consultants and people that help people that are self-employed stay on track. Because if you don't have a boss who's around to tell you how to manage your schedule, some of us can kind of free fall when we don't have somebody telling us what to do. So one of the most popular theories that people offer is it's called eating your frog, which is kind of a gross metaphor, but all it really means is that you have to take that big ugly thing that you're dreading the most, the thing that you like the least, and get that out of the way first. And then all the other work can file in after that and be much easier because you've gotten that big ugly thing done. And I have to tell you that for my 2 neurotypical kids, that strategy worked out really, really, really well. We would get that one assignment that they were dreading, and we would do it first thing in the morning when their brains were freshest and their attitudes were best, and we would get all of that hard stuff done first while they were freshest and least likely to complain about being hungry or having to go to the bathroom or I'm tired or whatever. We would get that done first, and then all the other work would seem easier after that. And then the last thing we would do would be to play prodigy math games or whatever, where it's work but it doesn't really feel like work, and we would sort of start with the hard thing and work our way back down from there. That said, my oldest kid does not have a neurotypical brain, and that system did not work for him. It just didn't. We would start with the thing that he hated the most, which was writing, and we would try to get that writing assignment done first thing, and he would shut down and wall up and get nothing done for the entire day. And I am ashamed to say that I wasted almost an entire year of our homeschool experience trying to make my kid work in this way because that's the way everybody said that it was supposed to be done. And every day we would fight, and he would cry and I would cry, and then we would have to spend all weekend doing all the extra work that we didn't get done during the week because we were fighting and crying all week. And I wasted almost an entire school year of my life that way. Okay? And that stunk. It took me almost a year to go, you know what? I know that this is the way that everybody says it's supposed to be done, but it's not working for us. This is not how my kid's brain works, so we're going to try it some way different. And I maybe changed everything and went the exact opposite way that I made the other kids work. My other 2 kids did their hardest thing first, and then did things that were easier and easier as the day went along. With my oldest, we would save that hardest thing for last. We would start with the fun stuff and slowly build our way up through the work. And then by the time we got to that last thing that he didn't want, it would be the end of the day. And he would go, well, I have to get this done or I can't go to bed, or I have to get this done or I can't eat dinner. I have to get this done because my brothers are done and I want to go play with them. So fine, I'll do it. And that's how we got it done. And it would take a fraction of the time to get that big, ugly writing assignment done when I saved that for last. And I wasn't spending all weekend doing homework anymore, and I wasn't crying all the time and pulling my hair out. And it was because I finally said, okay, I'm going to take the way that it's supposed to be done and throw it out the window and figure out what works for my kid, and just make it happen. So I want to reassure you that if things aren't going the way that they're supposed to or that you think they should, don't wait almost a whole academic year like I did, or don't wait a week, or don't wait 2 weeks to try something different. If it doesn't work for your kid, mix it up. Try it a different way. There are a lot of joys of real homeschooling that we are being denied by this isolation experience, but flexibility is not one of them. You can mix it up. You can try it a different way and do what works for your kid. Okay? And finally, my final point. I talked to a bunch of ladies on a live cast this weekend where we talked, it was called the Mommy Hour, and we get together on Sunday mornings first thing and sort of decompress from the whole week that we have had. And one of the things that I talked about this week was, look, your kid has just had their whole world flipped upside down, and so have you. Like, there was a day earlier this week when I thought to myself, I am holding it together and everything's fine and we are getting it done and I am hustling and we are working and everything's cool. And then I dropped the pen that I was writing with, like an ink pen, not even like a good one, and burst into tears because I had dropped my pen. And that was a day that I thought I was doing okay. Turns out I was not doing okay. And turns out none of us are. But it was kind of a turning point for me, because at that point I realized I thought I was okay, but I didn't really know what was going on with me. And my kids don't really know what's going on with them. So when they start bickering and fighting and crying and behaving in ways that they don't normally behave, they don't necessarily have a grip on all the big things that are happening with them either. So I decided right then and there that rather than trying to modify all these behaviors and lecture about how we're all in this together and try to get everybody to get along and try to do that parenting thing from this point on until life feels a little more sure-footed, I'm just going to go, you know what? I get it, buddy, and give him a hug. I get it. It stinks. You're right. Let's just hug it out. And I think that's kind of the spot that we're all in. Just hug it out. Be easy on yourself. Be forgiving of yourself. Offer a little bit of grace to your kids. Don't be afraid of the pivot, because we've got this, okay? Solidarity. I am here every afternoon to make sure that your kids are still getting that martial arts normal experience. I'm here every day at 9:30, so I'll be back in a half an hour to read your kids a story. Parents, we've got this. We've got this. Let's stick together and get it done. I'll see you guys soon.